All right. Well, hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining our webinar today. We're going to be talking about how the K15T team created our Help Center all around Confluence and why we think you maybe should too. So just a couple of things to note. You're going to be muted through the whole webinar. So if your dog does bark, we won't hear it. If my dog barks, you may hear it, and I apologize in advance. Also, because we can't hear you, it'll be hard to hear your questions. So if you have questions, you can use the Q&A tab that's down below and type your questions to us. Feel free to add those whenever they come to you. We will be answering questions at the end of the webinar. So, you should ask the really tough ones and we will answer them all at the end. Also, we are recording this session and we will anonymize it and share it later so that if you can't make it for the whole thing or you want to share it with colleagues, you can do that. So without further ado, let's jump into it. So first of all, I just wanted to introduce myself. My name is Matt Reiner. I'm a customer advocate at K15T. And, I used to be a customer of K15T's, and now I talk to our customers a lot, and I advocate for our customers among our app teams. It's probably the coolest job you could have. Also, I wanted to introduce Laura.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Laura, and as the slide says, I'm a user researcher. So I talk to a lot of users to just see how we can improve, especially our scroll apps and specifically on cloud right now. So yeah, thanks for joining everyone.
Also joining us quietly is Stefan. He is the product manager for our Scroll Viewport app. You can see his friendly face now, but you'll hear his friendly voice later. He'll be the pro answering the most difficult questions you can think of. So please write those in. I want to see him sweat a little bit. Just kidding. He's got all the answers. So a little bit more about K15T, the company that we're with. We have been developing apps for Atlassian solutions since 2009. We're based in Stuttgart, Germany, although many of us are working worldwide. We were founded by 2 people and 1 really great app, and we have grown to over 60 people with 18 Confluence apps. So it's been a pretty fun journey. We are primarily focused on technical documentation solutions for teams. That's what we're really passionate about. And this webinar is kind of our story. So why is it we liked Confluence so much that not only did we build a company around it, but we use it for our public documentation help site. And we want to share a little bit about what we've learned, why we think it matters, and why we've seen a lot of teams be successful having a Confluence-based help center. So just so you know what we'll be talking about, first we'll talk a bit about why Confluence above all other tools that are out there. Why would this be the one that your team might use? Then we'll talk a little bit about how it works. So how we at K15T structure some of our content, what our processes look like to get our content from Confluence to our help center. Then we'll talk a little bit about the impact that we've seen on our teams and that we hear from other teams, the benefits of having your help content hosted in Confluence. Then Laura is going to show us a little bit of how to go from content to help center in a few easy steps. And then we'll talk about sort of next steps that your team can take to get going with your help center quickly. So let's start with the most important question, which is why Confluence? Of all apps, why would your team use Confluence for your help center? There's some other great options out there, right? Well, let's start at the very beginning of the quest, and that is that everybody really wants a great help center. Every team wants that holy grail. Oh, the angel chorus sings as everyone imagines this incredible help center that you could have. And users would be able to just search for things and find answers and continue on with the thing that they're really passionate about because your app is not slowing them down. And everybody else on the team is excited about it too, right? Leaders can see how a help center would help free up resources. So, they don't have to hire so many people in support. They could bring more people in to do more product development work because we're spending less time answering user questions. Tech writers can see how it would make their valuable content much more accessible to users because they could find it when and where they actually need it. Engineers can see how they would end up not answering the same question over and over again because they could just answer it once in Confluence, and it lives in that help center for everyone to see their shared knowledge. Customer success representatives not only have fewer support cases because users are helping themselves, but also they can see how they can resolve cases faster because they can share really great documentation with help center links, really fast responding to cases. Marketing individuals can create campaign content much faster because for existing features, that content all exists already in the Help Center, so they can pull from that. And then also because the content lives in Confluence, as they're preparing maybe a marketing campaign on a new release, they can be in there and actually see the content as it's being developed by the team to understand what's coming in the release. And the sales team can keep track of what are the current features we have, what are the upcoming features we have, and very, very quickly be able to communicate value to customers and share direct links with them on the key features they need to close sales. It's perfect, right? It's perfect. But we've run into a lot of teams, and we've even struggled with this internally, where maybe key people get stuck and they sort of put the brakes on when it comes to this help center. Like, for example, a lot of leaders and managers will look at the help center and maybe they've looked at other tools or just looked at a really nice one and said, ooh, this is going to cost too much money, or it's just going to cost too much time. We really don't want to invest in the solution. We're going to invest elsewhere. Or maybe, tech writers are saying, oh, I just don't have time. I barely have the time to do the writing that I need to do. I can't build a custom help center and, style it and all the things that would be involved in that project. Or engineers say, I've seen some of the systems that manage the content for help centers. I just don't have time to contribute in those. I just have a few minutes. I want to be able to go in there quickly and add things, and that's just not going to work for me. Customer success folks, they might just look at it and be like, you know what, that's probably going to be a special system that I don't even have access to. So there's no way that I'm even going to be able to contribute content here. Marketing individuals probably will just resign to setting up more meetings with people, product managers and developers, to just try to figure out what do they need to say in their campaigns, what is true, what is not true. And then sales teams will just ask questions. Like, at the end of the day, they need to make the sale, and to make the sale, they have to have information, and that isn't living in a help center, so they have to find it somewhere. So this is kind of a bummer, but we found that a lot of this really boils down to this most important issue, which is the source of your content. So the concept of single sourcing has existed in technical writing for a while. And a lot of people think about it like, hey, my content lives here, and that's great. We create it all in one place and we structure it there. And then we can push it out to different formats. So maybe we push it out as a PDF for customers, or we push it out as a help center that's online. And that's really cool. That's a cool part of single sourcing. But an issue that a lot of help center and tech writing tools have is the single source is only accessible to just a few highly trained individuals. Everyone else, all the rest of the team, they don't have access to this source. And we find that really cripples a lot of teams, including ours. That's why we looked at Confluence and said, why don't we build a help center on something where all of us can access it? The place where we live and create all the rest of our content should also have our help center content as well. So let's look at that journey that a lot of teams take, including ours, when it comes to realizing, hey, we need a help center, and what do we need to do to get there? And we're going to do that by playing a little game I like to call good idea, bad idea. All right, so first step in the journey is typically just realization, right? We all know, users are telling us, leaders are seeing it, team members are saying, we just need to we got to get our thoughts together on this new product we're developing. We've got to document it somehow, right? So a good idea here would just be to start writing stuff. Just grab a napkin or a notebook or a OneNote or whatever it is, and just start writing down what you know about the product. That's a really, really good place to start, because knowledge comes, it has to come from somewhere, right? A bad idea would be to ignore that and instead just hire more trainers to train people on what stuff does, or hire more support people to do much more customer support because nobody knows what the product is supposed to do, or hire more sales and marketing folks because it's much harder to sell a product that doesn't have a good help center because people don't know what it does. Really hard to make a sale around a product like that. So the next step in the journey is often to use Word, right? We know we have thoughts, everybody has written things down, we need to bring it all together somewhere. So let's grab a Word doc or a Google Doc and start writing things down together. And a good idea here is to really start talking to your subject matter experts, right? Get the thoughts from them, start to structure that in a document, create some kind of a logical flow of that content. A bad idea would be to continue using Word or continue using this document into the future. This is not a good scalable practice, and you'll find very quickly that that document's going to get huge and it's not going to work for users to read through it that way. So the next step in the journey is often, okay, we really need to get a good tool now for our documentation. And so that's when teams start to look around and see what is out there for us to structure our content and organize it. So a good idea is to look for and adopt a tool that everybody on the team and even outside the team can contribute to, and it fits well in their process. A bad idea would be to adopt a tool that only a small subset of people within the team who have been highly trained and have very specific licenses can access the tool and use it. That will cut down on contributions, and collaboration will be a thing of the past. So once you've got the content sort of all put together, the final thing is like, okay, how do we share this with our users in a really nice way? And that, that's where typically that help center comes in, right? And a good idea would be to build a live online help center where you can keep it constantly up to date. So it's being refreshed with the latest information so users are able to search for and find the best answers to their questions. A bad idea would be just to share your content as documents to users. I understand there are certain use cases where PDFs are a must, but for the most part, it is better for users to go online and access live content because the content in your documents becomes stale very, very quickly. So I don't want to disparage anyone, but often for many teams and for many companies, this game is not one that you get to play more than once. So you may have sort of found yourself stuck, or you're facing one of these decisions, and I would encourage you to make the right one. If you are stuck, or if you feel like maybe we're making the wrong choice, you're not alone. We've run into a lot of teams that have done this, and certainly we've fumbled through some of these ourselves over the years. Not to say that any one of these can be a deal-breaking choice, but it takes a little bit of recognition to see, okay, where are we today, and how can we fix where we are and continue on this journey toward a good help center. So here's some ways of identifying where you might be. So one thing is maybe you did invest money elsewhere other than in documentation and in the help center. And what you'll find is if you hear about, we could have a really great, beautiful help center, you're like, oh, no way. Like, we don't have any resources for that. We don't have any time. That's probably because you've spent them somewhere else. So a little bit of reconfiguration of resources is probably going to be needed. Either that or a tool that's really simple that you can get going with really quickly. Another thing is maybe your team has been writing in that Word doc for so long that the idea of getting the content and publishing it out to the web just seems way too daunting because the two are such worlds apart. In that way, you probably need to start rethinking maybe that Word doc isn't the best place to be creating documentation together. Maybe you went with the restrictive tech writing tool that only a few people can use. And in that case, you really have to rethink, okay, do we really need this tool to create a great help center, or could we maybe move into a tool that more people can access and contribute to? And then finally, you might just be sharing documents with users, and you maybe even think that's what users actually want. But I would encourage you, that is definitely not what they want. Searching through and finding information is the key way that people use help centers. And doing that in a document is very difficult and just not user-friendly at all. So that's where Confluence comes in, and that is why we chose Confluence for our help center, because it brings everybody together. So let me show you what I mean. In my past life, I've worked on many different teams doing many different roles, including being a tech writer. And I have used Confluence among all those teams, and I found it is a fantastic tool for both internal and external documentation alike. And a lot of that is because it's so collaborative. Now, not to say that other tools aren't great, because I've seen other tools and I've used other tools. Other tools out there for tech writing and help centers are often very powerful, like really impressive features. The teams have put a lot of work in, but sometimes they are probably more powerful than your team will ever need. And so they end up forcing you to spend much more time doing things, preparing you for these mega features that actually you never are going to need. You need something, I don't want to say simpler, but something that fits more what your team is actually looking to do. Another thing is they can be very, very expensive. And even if you're thinking, oh no, but it's an open source project, so it's actually free. Well, it's not, because you have to invest a lot of time and a lot of money to get them set up and then customize the way your team wants to use them. And then you also have to invest in maintaining those, because things tend to break over time, or improving them. There's cost to all of these tools. And then often they're very difficult to use. Many are based on really complicated editors that take, weeks, if not months, to really get the hang of. And then also you have to, figure out how you're going to do that process of taking that content and turning it into a help center. So that can often just sort of turn team members away. In contrast, I've found that teams really just want to focus on collaboration. It's like these tools are great, but they kind of need to get out of the way and let the team collaborate the way the team wants to. And that content shouldn't live in another place. It should live where the team lives and where the team works together. And that's why Confluence, we found, is the perfect tool for that, because it has the social and the sharing and the commenting features that really make building content together really fun. So if you will, rewind with me for a bit, back to my prior gig as a tech writer, back when I was the lone tech writer. And I was using one of these tools where I was the only one who had access to it. And it was okay. I convinced myself, like, yeah, I can be the only one responsible for gathering and organizing information on our apps, producing and publishing our documentation, and then tracking metrics and making the content better over time. But if I'm honest, even when the product was in beta, I couldn't actually do that sufficiently. It was too much for me. And that was like, I was actually a tech writer. That was my sole position. On many other teams, they're asking their tech writers to do much more now. So tech writers are also Scrum Masters, and they're also product managers, that kind of thing. They have a lot of extra roles to do. And some teams aren't even hiring tech writers anymore. Instead, teams are feeling more and more, we should contribute and build documentation together. And that's kind of a great thing, because as a tech writer, I'm not alone anymore. And my role becomes more of an editorial role. See, we all work together in Confluence, where we can all access our documentation content with limits, right? We have control over what gets published and when, but we get to use all the content creation and collaboration features that are so great about Confluence, that were not afterthoughts like they were on many other tech writing tools, and we can create that content together. And so it's really been a hugely transformative thing. And just to show you, we've been doing this for a long time. So like when I say a long time, like, oh, last year we celebrated 10 years as a company, 2018. Oh, we got to see people in person at Summit. That was fun. No. Like back in 2009, that's when we started the company, and that's when we started using Confluence for our help center. So it's a sort of a time-proven thing. At least for 11 years, I can vouch for Confluence as a help center option. So how does it work? How do we use Confluence for our help center? Well, first, we use spaces to bring order to our content. So spaces exist in Confluence to sort of group content together with meaning. So here's how we do ours. So we started with a single app, right? And we grew that to a lot of apps. And then we started with just one team of 2 people, and we grew that to 4 teams with multiple people each. Now, each team is responsible for multiple of our apps. And then within each team, we do the development for the app, the support for the app, marketing, documentation, etc. We have our teams broken up as self-managed teams, which means we have different roles within each team for engineering, marketing, customer success, documentation, and so on. And some of those roles are filled by multiple people. Like I do tech writing, and I do some marketing, and I do I don't know, some testing, lots of different hats that are worn. So the way we develop our content so that everyone in the team who's wearing these different hats can access it, we put all of our content within spaces. So the documentation for each app lives within a space in Confluence. So that really helps us figure out, okay, where is the content that belongs to each team? But also that really helps us see, oh, hey, my app is integrating with another app that belongs to another team. So I'm going to link my content over to their content in that space. Or maybe I'll go over to their space and I'll edit it and add a note that links over to mine. So we can coordinate really quickly across our spaces. And then all those spaces are pulled together to form our help center. We do that using apps. So if you imagine Confluence as this really collaborative foundation, apps are what build on top of that to help you specialize on different things your team wants to do. So for example, some really great apps for creating content for help centers are the Numbered Headings app. So this seems like a really simple app, but for some teams, you want to just have numbers behind all your headings, and this app adds them automatically. Another one would be Draw.io or Glyphy. They're really great diagramming apps that help your team build dynamic diagrams right in Confluence. There's Kamala Document Management or Kamala Document Control that you can use to build really powerful workflows if you're maybe in a regulated environment where you need lots of approvals around content changes. There's Scroll Viewport, which you'll get to see a little bit of today, where you can take the content you create in Confluence and bring it online as a help center. And then for versioning, right, it's important for us sometimes to provide old versions of content for users, as well as to have a private way of editing content and changing it for an upcoming release. If you're using Confluence Server and Data Center, you could use our Scroll Versions app for that. It's been around for a long time and has a very happy user base. When it comes to cloud, we are working on bringing versioning there right now. There's a light ability to work on new features in the background, but to give customers full-on legacy versions, we are working on that right now. Laura will talk a bit more about that later, but we're trying to bring our same strong versioning to the cloud that people are experiencing in server and data center today. So we also, of course, use Scroll Viewport to bring our content out of Confluence and turn it into a help center. So I wanted to show you sort of our content creation process, how that works. So first of all, I begin making changes. So make changes to a page or multiple pages within Confluence. This is all happening privately. It's not affecting our help center at this point. Those changes I then share with my teammates. So engineers on my team can validate that it's correct. Team members can check my grammar. Support people can chime in and add additional links to resources. Marketing people can add content and also even get a better understanding of what's coming. And so I get all that feedback in the form of comments and other changes, and then I can make revisions. And you can see here in this entire process, Confluence is at the center always, and everyone has access to that content as it grows and changes and improves. And when we're ready, we go live with that content, and it is pushed from Confluence into that public view, and there's our Holy Grail Help Center. So really quickly, I wanted to just talk about the impact this tends to have on teams. So first of all, it helps managers see the value of users helping themselves. So for example, their teams get to have a shared understanding for the first time maybe of what the product actually does. You can avoid, if you have a colleague who, maybe gets a new job or a promotion, you don't have to sit down with them for 2 hours and do a brain dump and write down everything they say because they're the only ones who know everything about the product. Everything lives in Confluence, and so the team already knows all the stuff. So instead, you can spend 2 hours and give them a proper, celebration party. Users can find the information they need, maybe for the first time. They can go to Google and find things because, Scroll Viewport helps search engine optimize all of the content. This helps boost product value or the perceived value in users' minds because they can not get stuck, when they're trying to do something, and they can also discover new features that exist in your product. And then finally, product sales are often impacted because salespeople can share additional features with people, and users often start shopping way before they're talking with the sales team. They just start Googling things, and so really valuable technical information about your product will immediately start showing up in Google search results. Also, your contributors will be really much more satisfied with what it is they're adding to documentation because of its long-term stickiness. Like I mentioned before, engineers can confidently answer questions one time, and that information is available for the rest of the history of your app because it lives in Confluence. This is a big deal because do you remember what you did 2 weeks ago? I do not. And that's especially true for engineers and information workers who are constantly creating new features. They will very quickly forget what something exactly does. And so it's very important to capture that in Confluence as soon as the change is made. Also, customer success and marketing individuals can do their jobs much more efficiently and independently of the other teams because they can go in and see the content that lives in Confluence, and then they can also share that content that lives in the Help Center. So ultimately, they can do what they do best, which is communicating much more value to customers much, much quicker. And then finally, for you tech writers out there, we actually have a system that people like to use and that works for everyone, which is not something you can say much of the time. We can do our jobs really well. Like I have control, I can achieve the results that I want, and I have a visibility to see what changes are being made. So I can control, what gets shipped and what gets to our help center, and what, maybe needs some more improvement. And then the team has a tool that is fun enough that they'll actually contribute to it. I don't have to beg people for reviews. It's the most fun way to write technical writing. I don't know, we should trademark that. Also, we have a tool that's flexible because Confluence is much more than a documentation tool, so the team can use it for a bunch of other things around content we want to create together that doesn't live on the Help Center. So there's much more we can do with it. And finally, I can give my users the great experience they have been asking for, right? I can give them something that's beautiful to browse through, beautiful to skim through, and something they can also just search for from Google. So I wanted to sort of pass things over to Laura now. She's going to take us from the journey of having content all the way to having a help center using our Scroll Viewport app. So while she's getting her screen set up, I just want to remind everybody, if you have questions throughout, please use that QA tab, and we will answer them at the end.
Yeah, thank you, Matt. And with all of this in mind, the question is, the pressing question, how do we get to this Holy Grail Help Center? And for this demo today, I thought we would all collectively put ourselves in the shoes of good software and just pretend that we're part of this team here. This awesome team, as their website here that you can see shows, we can't help but make good software. Let's just say we're a product manager of Smart App, one of their apps here. And as you can see, we have several apps on the market already, quite successful. So not only Smart App, but also Cool App, New App, and Shiny App. And as you can see today, any interested customers can request a demo with us. They can browse our products, see the services that we offer. And especially for our existing customers, we have this Get Help section here, which today looks like this for our users. So this is actually a support desk solution. So many of the ones that you probably know of, the very well-known ones. And it comes with an additional thing that they call knowledge base. So actually our support team works behind the scenes in the support desk solution, and we in front of the scenes, we offer this to our customers. So a way to search for any keywords to topics that we offer here. We have several collections of articles, and they can also obviously submit a support request here to get in touch straight with our support team. So what they can do here today is, let's just say they want to go to the how-tos. They can then select the article that they're interested in case, they feel like looking for help before reaching out to us. So they can go into the details and read through it to find the valuable information that they need. And this isn't too bad for our users currently. So the search is a little bit limiting right now. It doesn't cover all of the content. And also the navigation is a little bit clumsy, as you can see here. So to go from one article to another, you have to click back and forth and all of that. The real nightmare is really for us and for the entire team, but especially for us as a product manager. Now, what users cannot see is that the editor that this builds on in the support desk solution is very, very basic. So only a few basic formatting options. You can only insert images, but you can't really change them anymore. And it's not collaborative at all, the editor. So it's just one person editing at once, which means it's hard enough to get everyone else in your team, especially the developers, to get in and contribute to this. But now they have the added excuse of not being able to go in here while you're there. And also your CEO doesn't really feel like getting everyone a license. So actually not everyone can even get here. So a long time ago you said, this is not something I want to do. I don't have time to do documentation by myself. So you thought, well, we use Confluence internally to work on new features, marketing campaigns. So why not use our Smart App product space that we already have and draft our knowledge base articles in here. So some time ago you started doing that and you felt that worked better. So because your developers are here all day in product development, it's really just a click away. You can mention them on the articles, you can get their contribution and reviews in. So that is working fine. However, for you, that means you need to go back, copy paste everything into this other tool, which means manual work, and God forbid that anything changes after it's released, because then it's 2 locations. And yes, release days obviously are a nightmare for you, because not only is the product released, but you need to copy paste each individual article. So one day you go, there must be a better way to skip all of that steps and just publish straight from here. So let's just explore the Atlassian Marketplace. You say maybe something like publish documentation. So it gets a few results. And as you can see here, you see scroll Viewport. So it just says here, publish your Confluence documentation as a help center, customize the theme, connect with Google Analytics. So it says it here again. That sounds interesting because actually one of our key requirements is that this needs to be on brand, whatever we deliver. So if Viewport cannot do that, then that's not for us. But Google Analytics, that sounds promising. And because you can try all of the Atlassian apps for free for 30 days, why not try it out? So let's do that. So in Confluence Cloud, where we are today now, with this new navigation, you can access Scroll Viewport straight from here, from apps. So you just click it and we go into this. So this says new site, which sounds right. That's what we want to do, create a new site. So we just have to choose a name and a content source. So site name sounds easy, the URL, obviously, because this is on the web. And then content sources, what we can see here already, it says space name. So you actually followed Matt's advice that he's given you, and you went before this and organized all of the articles that you surprised not only had in your support desk, but in Word documents, in people's heads. You organized it all into a new space in Confluence. So because you did that, we're just going to give it a nice name. So good software help, for example, a URL, and then we select this space that we've prepared already with all of our Smart App documentation. So select that. We can already see the Help Center theme is pre-selected. This is exactly what we wanted. This is exactly what brought us into the product. Looked really nice in the screenshots. So let's save everything. And now we can see we are offline. That is reassuring because we're still not ready. And we can see the selected content source appears here. It's a space, great. It seems like you can do some more settings here. Here again, settings. But the app prompts us to edit the theme first, which is exactly what we want to do because the customization part of this is really important to us. So we click edit theme and we're in the theme editor here. So we can see we have two options, templates and integrations. We already know of integrations from the marketplace listing, but let's maybe explore templates first. We can already see that we have a preview here, which is actually not clickable, but it changes dynamically with whatever you change on this side here, which means you can experiment with some of the options really quickly and get to the perfect solution for you. So let's explore what we have in templates. So you've already seen the preview, this logo here, it doesn't look quite right. So maybe the header here, we can see how we can change it. So we can already see a logo and a way to pick a different image. So let's just pick our good software logo. That is a key requirement. And then change the background just so it stands out a little bit more. And then we can explore some other options. So let's just say we want this whole hero layout that we see here. Let's maybe switch it to the detail layout. Let's see what happens. So as you can see, the search bar is slightly different and the heading moves down here. We might as well want to change the background because that's definitely not ours. So let's do that as well. Same way, we just pick an image here. Yep, that looks nice. And then just some other tweaks. So this documentation heading, we don't really need it. We can remove that. And then it would be really nice to structure this landing page a little bit more to guide our users. So why not put our latest release notes here? So that way they have an easy entry point. We can also add our very important support link. So we had that before to our support desk and submitting a request. We want to keep that. We can do that by simply adding a link in the header. So let's do that. That looks better. And we can also tweak some other things. We can add a small description and guide our users further through to whatever we think is most valuable to them. So with this call to action, they can easily get to our get started content. Yep. So we can also browse other sections of the site. So this is an example of an article section. The articles are the ones that really contain the content of it. So we can see our content for what can I do with smart choices would somehow look like that. So as we can already see here, we have a really nice way to navigate. If we compare that to our old knowledge base, that was really clumsy. So this is already better. We can change how this displays to make it narrow or wide, add breadcrumbs, remove them, and table of contents. So this is already looking nice. So let's just save all of this, click out of this, and then we can generate our first preview. And what this allows us to do after it went through all of the content is we're still offline. We can look at the preview, and now we can click through, scroll through everything, check that everything is the way we want to, and then go live if we feel comfortable with it. So let's just do that. We confirm again, and then we're live. So that was really easy from no help center to a really, really good help center. And if we wanted to, if we just presented this to our other teams and they said, wow, this is really looking great, we can actually scale the help center to include our other apps. So we can add more content sources later on. We can, so this is our live site. So let's just do that later. But let's explore the integrations for now. So we can add a Google Analytics Tag Manager and Search Console. So when we add our account details here, what it does is the data appears in our Google accounts. So that is really handy if those numbers are really important also for your other stakeholders. We can also add a help desk widget. So we just select, for example, Zendesk, provide the URL of our public help desk. And then what we can see is this thing here gets added, this little widget. And the great thing about the widget is that it follows users around everywhere they go. So wherever they get stuck, they can click here and just enter their name, their question, and submit it from here, and then just continue browsing while they wait. So yeah, as I said, the plus here allows you to, at any point really, add a new content source. So when you do that, it's the same way we did before. You just organize all of the rest of your documentation in spaces. So we might have a space for our Shiny app documentation, for our new app documentation. We click save, and then we get this new portal page added, which now looks a little bit different. And this portal page is to manage all of this new content, so your users get a really nice navigation experience. So if we edit the theme, you can see this is the page that has been added, and we can now customize it the same way we did with the rest. And what this does, once we update the site and generate the preview, is we can go in and see that we have an entry point for Smart App, for Shiny App, for New App, and each app comes with its content, obviously, with its own release notes and all of that. So a really nice way for this to scale to your entire organization. And as Matt alluded to, with Viewport, the great thing is if you're already familiar with Confluence, you already have your workflows in Confluence, none of that has to change because it all still lives in Confluence. So if we click Smart App Documentation, it brings us straight to our documentation space, and we can create a new child page. Say we have a new release, a new feature, so we need a new page. We just do that. We can add a comment, mention someone to review that. None of that will reflect in your Viewport side. We can go edit things, make the changes, say we have a 2.0 release. And then we can also check here inside the pages if everything is more or less fine. So do the pages and the layout display at the way I want to. And with all of this, the great thing is the changes aren't live yet. So if you have a release coming up and you need to make the necessary changes, you don't need to wait until the product is released. You can do all of that. And once that is ready, you go back to the app, scroll Viewport here. You can see that there's a content change. You just click update side, it generates the preview again for you. And once that is finished, you click review side and have all of the new content up there. So a really easy, fuss-free way, much more relaxed for you to bring help documentation to your users. And maybe that even keeps them from going straight to support because it's all so well explained and accessible here. So I hope you took something away from this. As we said at the start, there's much, much more to come to cloud. For example, versioning. So we have this nice version picker here. So let's just say you still needed to provide different versions to your customers. So we're working on giving you a way to easily make that available to them. And also, because we're still working on this, if you'd like to participate in user research, we're always interested in feedback. And this is an ideal opportunity for you to share the feedback about our scroll apps currently, if you're already tried them or used them. Shape the future of our scroll apps just by telling us as a tech writer or as a team keeping technical documentation, what is it that you would need on Confluence? And then help us make the scroll apps the best choice for technical documentation. So if that sounds like that's interesting to you, just shoot through an email to this email address here, and we'll get in touch. So yeah, so I'll hand it over to Matt with a few more tips.
All right. So just to wrap us up and get us heading into the Q&A portion here, I wanted to just leave you with some next steps your team can take. As you saw from the Help Center Laura setup, we want teams to be able to get going quickly because we know you don't have a lot of time. So here's some quick things that you can do. First, learn more about some of the best practices we've found for creating technical content in Confluence, whether it's for your Help Center or for your internal documentation. We have a microsite that we've created called Rock the Docs, and it's just a collection of all of these tips and tricks that we've found over time for how to create content really well that's powerful and reusable and all those fun things. There's a few parts that are specific to server and data center. And then there's very few parts that are specific to if you're using a certain app on a certain one of those. But for the most part, it applies to everyone, whether you're using cloud, server, or data center, even with no apps at all. Next would be try out some light versioning on Confluence Cloud today. We have this blog post, excuse me, that we co-wrote with our friends at ThinkTilt, who make the great Proforma app for Jira. They actually have been using our app Scroll Documents to do some background documentation versioning, kind of to fit their process, while still publishing their documentation on Confluence Cloud. Really interesting approach, and I just wanted to share that because it's really cool to see what the team at ThinkTilt are doing. And then finally, see what your team can do with Scroll Viewport. Head on over to the Atlassian Marketplace. You can try Scroll Viewport for 30 days. And one of the things I always tell people is that includes our really great customer support. That was actually how I met the team at K15T, was through that really great support. So please send us your feedback and your questions. We want to make these apps better with you. So let your voice be heard. So now we're going to jump into the Q&A. So if you have questions, please be sure to type them in. As I mentioned, the legendary Stefan will be chiming in here, as well as Laura. I will just ask questions to them, and let's get started. So Stefan, here's a question for you, I think. So a team really likes the Smart Terms app, which is a great app for compiling a list of terms that are highlightable when you're looking at the Confluence interface. So it's great for a glossary, that kind of thing. He's wondering, is that kind of thing possible in Scroll Viewport? And if not, is that something that we would ever build, like K15T, I mean?
So important to know would be which deployment we are talking about, if it's cloud or if it's server. But in any case, we would need to look into how the app Smart Terms is implemented in Confluence to see if we can make it possible with Scroll Viewport. But if, then of course we could implement it and make it work.
Yeah, we always encourage users, by the way, to reach out to support if they feel like we don't support something currently, because we're very interested in finding out what would add value to a site.
All right. Next question is, does Scroll Viewport use the native Confluence search, or can you switch in something else, like, for example, Swift type?
Yeah, also depends on the deployment here again. So Scroll Viewport for cloud is not using the Confluence search. So we are using the Elasticsearch there for the sites, which are heavily customizable from our side. And the plan is that we improve the search there continuously. On server, we are using the Confluence search in the background, but here the user has the ability to, not with the Help Center theme, but with a custom theme, to implement his own search, whatever he wants.
All right. Question from someone who would like us to actually show like our Help Center spaces, how we're structuring the content on our Help Center, and kind of like show how that directly maps to our help site. That's not something we have time to do now, but I think, I'd love to know more from the people who are attending. I think we're sending out a survey after this. Let us know if you want like more of a technical deep dive of literally how are we doing things in our Help Center. We would be happy to show that. The fun thing is we use all these same apps. We're not doing anything special here. So if I want a special feature in our Help Center, I have to beg Stefan just like the rest of us. So thank you for the question. We should do that. We should do that soon. So yeah, other people, let us know if you're interested in that. Here's another question, maybe for Laura. They have a private Confluence instance. They want to use it internally for documentation, but they also want to be able to mark some things as public. So do they have the ability with permissions to make things internal only, and then viewport content be available to everyone?
Yeah. So again, I mean, it seems like we start all of the things with the remark depends on the deployment type. But I guess in cloud where things are much more restrictive right now, if you had Viewport, what we recommend is that you actually keep a separation of what you want to go to the web and what not. What we could recommend today, if you have, I mean, it really depends how you want to deliver the documentation to those external people, but I assume on Viewport, then internally, you might as well copy this content into a separate space to manage it there. There are also great add-ons to do that as well. I don't know, Stefan, if you've heard in server, then there's probably much more you can do with restrictions management to control that.
Yeah, so on server, you basically can have like internal content and external content living in the same Confluence instance. You just need to make sure that you have everything restricted you want to keep internal, and open up everything you want to access from the public. But yeah, it's definitely also possible.
All right. Our next question is around CSS customization. Can you do that? Like, can you tweak the way things look using CSS?
On Confluence Cloud, currently you can't, but we are already working on that feature. So we already developed first concepts, and we will pick up this topic soon. On Viewport server, this feature is already available. So yes.
All right, and just to be clear, I wanted to make sure everyone knows when we say server, we also mean data center, because it is also data center certified. So next question is it possible to customize the full URL in Scroll Viewport?
Again,
and maybe, yeah, well, whomever, go for it.
Yeah, so on cloud, it's currently not possible. So we have the fixed URL currently where you can edit the sub part of it. So you could, for example, say documentation dot, and then it's a fixed part, scroll, what is it? Sorry.
I think it, what is it? Help.scroll.com.
The scroll help.site.
Yeah.
URL, but we are already working on a feature so that you can have any URL you want there, with some limitations, but basically you can get the top level URLs you probably want to have there to be integrated. On server, you are already able to do that.
All right, so server today, cloud soon.
Yeah.
All right. Question maybe for Laura. Is Google Analytics, can you use that in the cloud version and the server version?
Cloud, as you can see, yes. With server, it's possible. However, with everything in server, it requires you to, yeah, I mean, Stefan, you can allude to the technical details, but the process is not the same as the one that I showed you for that.
Yeah, so in server, we basically have this theme properties file. Works kind of the same. So you also have to input the ID of your Google Analytics, but the UI looks totally different. So it's basically a key value file, but I don't want to get into many details here. But in general, what we could say, I guess, is that we always try to keep the cloud theme as the server theme, that we keep the feature parity there. So if you see a feature on cloud, then you could be to 90% sure, I would say, that this will follow also on server, and vice versa, of course.
All right. Question about the images that were used in, in the viewport. Do those live on Confluence? Do they live somewhere else?
So when it comes to the process that I've shown, this all lives in Confluence. So the way we built Viewport is that actually all of the content, everything that you see displayed, everything that is not the theming part of it, you do control from your space. So in that particular case, for example, the logo, you could upload that image to the space overview page. So in our case, Smart App Documentation, for example, you just add it as an attachment, for example, and then it appears in the dropdown. I have also seen another question about a PNG file and if that works with the transparent background, and it does. It seems to not work for this particular user, and for everyone who is already trialing the product, using it, and runs into any issues, please reach out to support, and we're really happy to follow up and help with any particular issues that we're already encountering.
All right. I saw a question in here about accessing customer support with your Scroll Viewport trial. You can get in contact with our customer support anywhere on our help site. There's a big support button at the bottom right-hand corner, or you can just email us at support@k15t.com. One of the really cool things is that actually goes to the team that builds our apps. We don't have like a separate support team. So you might be talking to Stefan, you might be talking to myself. You just never know. But the nice thing is, we want to hear from you directly. Another question we had is, can you, when you go into your different Confluence spaces and make a bunch of changes, can you put only certain changes live on the viewport, or is it everything?
So currently it's everything. Yeah, it would be interesting to know what's the flow of the user is, if they want to publish only certain content sources or spaces, or if they really want to publish single pages even. That would be interesting to know. But currently, if you click update site, everything will be published.
Okay. All right.
And this is a great topic for us to investigate. So for anyone who is currently thinking of they need versioning, for example, of some sort, or you want further control of what goes live when, those are really interesting topics to us. So that will be a good thing to reach out to me. So we'll send you a follow-up email where we have that information, how you can reach out. But it was lparaga@k15t.com, in case you missed that before. So yeah, and then we can discuss your use cases and explore some more of that.
Awesome. We have a few questions around versioning, some excitement, and also questions around timeline. We don't have a specific timeline to share right now, but it has our full attention on it, and we are trying to get something ready, at least for ourselves, by the end of the year. I always tell people we're hoping it's a diamond, but it might be a lump of coal at first. So we're not here to promise any dates, but what we really are excited about is we've been able to do a ton of user research. Laura has talked to so many people about what it is they're really looking for around versioning, so that what we bring to cloud is what teams are actually really looking to do with versioning. So soon, I'm hoping 2020 is the year of versions on cloud, but 2020, it might be 2021. But if you go to our website and sign up for our newsletter, you will be on the list of the first people to find out when versions is live, because we are dying to share that with everyone. We have just a little bit more time.
Yep. And what I forgot to mention, I see a lot of questions also around, can you include content from somewhere else? I see the include plus macro mentioned here. All of that, really interesting, relevant things that we're currently exploring. So encourage you to reach out.
All right. One other quick question was, is the Scroll Viewport Help Center theme responsive? And I think the answer is yes.
Yes.
Yep, awesome. It is responsive. Yeah, you can use it on any device. So that ends our time. What we will do is we will respond to everyone who asked questions that we couldn't answer. We'll respond to you directly with answers. Thank you so much for asking so much. It's been great. If you have more direct questions for the team, feel free to contact our support directly as you're trying our apps. I wish we had more time together. Wish we could see you in person, but until then, stay healthy and build great help centers. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.